For our YouTube video, I wanted to discuss why we need feminism. Our society needs feminism because patriarchy has existed long enough to make socially constructed gender binaries seem real and concrete. But the fact of the matter is these things aren't real, they only exist in our minds. In maintaining gender roles for such an extensive amount of time, patriarchy has constructed social rules that simultaneously complete two things. One, retain male dominance, and two, repress women. The consequence of a centralized patriarchy is an everlasting struggle for women, among other individuals deemed second-class citizens, to obtain the same social privileges that males enjoy. There is no scientifically justifiable reason as to why males are inherently superior to females, which is why I absolutely think our society needs to embrace feminism and come to realize that men and women are equals. Social inequality has existed since the development of agriculture and the selective distribution of surplus. Prehistory, through other archaeology and other anthropological studies, has shown us that men have typically controlled the surplus of food, although they are not necessarily the ones responsible for the procurement of food. And thus it can be assumed that the patriarchy has existed since the arrival of agriculture roughly 15,000 years ago. Women have been viewed innately inferior to men for a minuscule fraction of our existence. So a modern example of how that disproves this is modern horticultural societies in Africa. Women are responsible for food procurement and men are not. And these women don't have plows. These women do labor-intensive work all day, every day to provide for their family. This is just a prime example of how that disproves any theory suggesting strength is the cause of social inequalities. As I stated earlier, gender and all the stereotypes associated with it only exist in our minds. They are not biological constraints dictated by the laws of nature, as some would like to believe. The purpose of feminism is to break down the dominating patriarchy and all that comes with it, such as, stereotypes, discrimination, and oppression. And it does this by bringing to light the formerly invisible patriarchy and all the methods under which it operates. Patriarchy exists because we allow it to exist, nothing more. It has been allowed to exist for so long because we have blindly taken everything as taught us with good faith and without question. It has created a protective shield barrier around itself which allows it to be unrecognizable. This is the constant struggle that feminism battles with. I want to take you all back to the day a couple weeks ago where we looked at the examples of why I need feminism and why I don't need feminism. Specifically, I want to look at the YouTube video of the young woman ranting about how feminism is taking over the world at the expense of men and male privilege. I don't remember all of her arguments for why feminism is really an idea orchestrated for a female takeover, but the few I do recall are men are the only ones required to sign up for the draft, which in her opinion is evidence for female takeover, and when couples divorce, the judge often assigns children to mothers, and we are creating a generation that hates men. Yeah. First, I wanted to address her argument about the draft. The draft is a reflection of the patriarchy in the sense that it is assigned only to men because they're inherently physically superior. As demonstrated earlier, this is not a scientifically valid argument. Also, dying for your country as a patriot is very honorable in American society, and only allowing men to participate in such valor is a way to ensure that women can never do something as courageous and honorable as men. Denying women this opportunity is a measure taken by the patriarchy to retain dominance. Moving on, I want to discuss the young woman's argument about how the court system is skewed in favor of women. It is true that historically, men are not typically awarded the custodial rights of children in divorce battles. However, on the side of feminism, argue that this is just another way to maintain male dominance by perpetuating dependency among females. As great as children may be, caring for them is a full-time job that requires a lot of personal sacrifice. Children are time-consuming, expensive, and dependent. In a world where it's hard enough for a single woman to make ends meet, this is a daunting task, and oftentimes the mother has financial losses. Financial loss, I don't mean to say this happens in all cases, but financial losses equate to desperation, which equates to monetary dependency. The government, a male-dominated entity, comes into play here because they take advantage of the desperation of women and provide them with the monetary funds that they need. This also goes to show that men, are the reliable and they can, just sweep in whenever they want and save the day. This perpetuation of female dependency and stereotypes is reflected in our everyday language, whether we realize it or not. A great example of this is the term welfare king, which was coined by our former beloved President Ronald Reagan, which is essentially describes women of color who don't do anything for themselves and live off the government system. Which I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I just want to point out that it doesn't happen as often as people might think it does. The action of assigning children to mothers in divorce cases is not women taking over America, as the young lady argued. It instead is a method to further patriarchal ideologies because it paints the picture of single mothers as being government-dependent, second-class citizens who basically just run amok a society. Our society needs feminism because the male privilege exists in every avenue of life. Women are people too. We contribute to society, we pay taxes, and there's absolutely no reason as to why we should be denied the same opportunity and privileges as men. I think everybody should embrace feminism and ultimately equality because no one is better than anyone else, and yet it is the way of the world. I'd like to be in a world where I'm viewed as Morgan Bass, as a person with qualities, not that bitch or that second-class citizen as defined by patriarchy.